Okay, next up is Trish the Trig function. Trish the Trig function is example number 4 on the reading. And of course it's related to a trig function. F of x is equal to x plus 2 sine of x. And we're only going to consider the interval 0 to 2 pi, 0 included. As always, our first step to find where Trish is increasing or decreasing is we need to make sure we find the first derivative. In this case, f prime of x would be 1 plus 2 cosine of x. That's using our basic trig derivative properties. Our next thing, as always, is to find our critical points. This is where f prime is equal to 0 or f prime doesn't exist. This is a trig function that is defined for all x values, so f prime is not going to not exist. The only thing that we need to test is f prime equal to 0. In this case, we're going to set 1 plus 2 cosine of x equal to 0. This brings us back to our trig equation solving days. I do have a tutorial on how to do that. But if you'll remember, we need to make sure that we isolate our trig function. In this case, cosine of x is equal to negative 1/2 when you move the 1 over and divide by 2. And on the unit circle, these are two values. This is fulfilled by two angle values of 2 pi over 3 and 4 pi over 3. The reason why I did not attach the 2 pi k to this problem is because we're only considering the interval 0 to 2 pi, and there's no coefficient inside of the cosine function, so there's no possibility for extra roots in this. So 2 pi over 3 and 4 pi over 3 are our roots. We're going to go ahead and put those on a sign test. We've got 0, 2 pi over 3, 4 pi over 3, and 2 pi. I put the 0 and 2 pi on the sign test because I want to make sure that I remember that I'm only considering a short interval of this function, the interval between 0 and 2 pi. For our first sign test, we're going to test where x is equal to pi over 3. If you remember, cosine of pi over 3 is 1/2. 1 plus 2 times 1/2 is, of course, going to be a positive number. From 2 pi over 3 to 4 pi over 3, one test could be x is equal to pi. 2 cosine of pi is equal to negative 1 times 2, which is negative 2. Negative 2 plus 1 is a negative number, so we're going to plug that in as negative under our sign test. And between 4 pi over 3 and 2 pi, you might be able to test x is equal to 5 pi over 3. Alright, when we work that out, we end up with 2 cosine of 5 pi over 3, which is 2 times 1/2, or 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. That's a positive number. Remember, as we're being careful on this, to label your sign test. I put that on there just to see if you were paying attention. One way that you could check your work here is to realize that in the shaded region, cosine of x is less than negative 1/2 in between 2 pi over 3 and 4 pi over 3. That's because our x values are very far along the x-axis down here. Okay, so our cosine values on our unit circle will be a very large negative number in comparison. When we plug that large negative number into this, we're going to get a negative number for our derivative. Hence, that's why the derivative between 2 pi over 3 and 4 pi over 3 is a negative number. Our conclusions: f prime increases from 0 to 2 pi over 3 and from 4 pi over 3 to 2 pi because the derivative is positive on both of those intervals. F decreases from 2 pi over 3 to 4 pi over 3 because the derivative is negative. Trig functions can be tricky. You need to make sure that you understand how to solve trig equations when you're doing them and have a good solid foundation with your unit circle.